guys, it's Sophie. So today I want to try and do a video about Stephen King, and what I'm going to try and do is like an author spotlight. So a fair few people have asked me for this over time, and I've not yet sort of picked up and got on with it, but I needed to. Now I've actually already filmed this once today, but unfortunately the audio didn't record for some reason, so this is going to be take two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the books I've read of his, a little bit about why I like him, and then give you guys some suggestions as to where I think a good place to start with Stephen King might be, depending on what kind of thing you're interested in. So the books that I've read and own are Under the Dome, Misery, On Writing, which is actually a non-fiction book about sort of the art of writing in general, The Tommyknockers, Salem's Lot, Pet Semetary, Different Seasons, which is a collection of short stories, Cujo, It, From a Buick 8, and I'm currently working my way through the Batman books, which is a collection of 4 short stories, which is Rage, The Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man. Okay, so I've also read a number of books that I actually don't own from him, that I've borrowed or that I have had but have given away over time. So I'll run through those ones quickly as well. The Stand, The Shining, 11/22/63, Carrie, Doctor Sleep, which is The Shining Part 2, Bag of Bones, The Mist, and Full Dark No Stars. Now there are still loads of Stephen King books and short stories that I've yet to read, but I have got to a fair amount, so I do feel as though I can probably give some recommendations as to why he's any good and why you should bother. I think King is an author that is very popular for a really good reason. His characters are really strong and he's a brilliant storyteller. Like, he just has the ability to create like fantastic tales out of the everyday. So like, as a good example, we have From a Buick, right? So this isn't one of his like best loved books, but it's a fairly well-known book. But this is a horror story about a car, and I mean, this car isn't like, it's scary, but it's still just a car, but King can manage to make it kind of terrifying. And he weaves in terrifying elements with everyday people, and his characters are what make it so strong, because they are so believable and real. It makes the horror and the sort of threat that underlies a lot of his stories feel even more terrifying on a sort of individual level. Now the other thing I find really interesting about King, and I think is a good like story to tell to try and get like whether he's good or not to some extent, is kind of the story behind the Batman books. So if you've never heard of this before, basically Stephen King had this success with his own writing, and he kind of snowballed and got bigger and bigger, and it got to the stage where he would sell books because he was Stephen King, or that's what he felt, and he wanted to see whether or not he could separate himself from his writing and see whether his writing did well on its own. So he began to write under a pseudonym and wrote the Batman books. And the books did sell well, so his writing did make the books do well, but before it got to a stage where it was really comparable, he was so famous that people picked up his writing style from his pseudonym and suggested it might be him, and it all sort of came out. But I just find that really interesting that he has kind of done well twice under different names. It's not just that he's Stephen King, he is genuinely a brilliant writer. Now I just want to try and give you an idea of where to start with King. So King is well known for writing his horror, and there is like that like creepiness to a lot of what he writes, but he's not strictly horror. He does have short stories that stuff like The Green Mile, or stuff like 11/22/63 aren't horror, they aren't scary. And I actually think 11/22/63 is quite a good place to start with King, because it's a fairly well-established King. It's him like in his stride, and it's kind of like sci-fi rather than anything else. So that book is about time travel and about the JFK assassination, basically, but it's really good, and it's just really pacey. It is big, but you know, it is brilliant, and I think that would be a good place to start if you are interested in King but a little bit worried by the horror, if maybe the horror is what's new to you. But yeah, I think that's really good. I often suggest Carrie is a good place to start, because it's a really short book, and whilst obviously it's like really early, it does give you a good sense of the kind of things King is good at, and I think if you read Carrie you tend to know if you're going to like his other stuff or not, and it is, you know, a fairly small investment time-wise. So Carrie's normally a good one to start with. But I have 2 others I'm going to put to you as well. I think Pet Semetary is, again, like fairly short, like this edition's 500 pages, but it's a little short book. And King's writing is really fast paced, so even his like 700-page books you can normally read in a couple days. This one is creepy but not really scary in my opinion, so this might be one again for some people who are not as into horror. It is kind of creepy in that it's kind of about like undead pets kind of, but it's interesting, it's fun, and again it gives you a good idea of his like characters. The other one that I always recommend to people, and do you know what, it's not as popular as some of his other ones, but I genuinely love it, and that one is the Tommyknockers. And this is a UFO story, and I just think it's such a brilliant UFO story. So I really love UFO stories, like I think they're brilliant. Not like sci-fi adventure shit, but like there are aliens here on Earth and I don't know what to do and why are they following me and why is all this weird stuff happening. I love that kind of thing, and I think the Tommyknockers is great, and I genuinely like put this on so many people. I've read it 3 or 4 times, my pages are yellow and grim, but it's another one I think, like I always think I need to reread, and you know what, maybe this year I'm just gonna reread some classic Stephen King. But yeah, so there's a couple options there really for you. One thing I would say is like a disclaimer, like King also does like his Dark Tower series, so he also does this like fantasy kind of epic scale stuff. I haven't read any of that. I know that that is greatly popular. I know a lot of people really love that, but I can't speak to that personally. I've read a lot of his other stuff, but never touched that side of it. I'm sure I will do in future. People tell me to read it an awful lot, so you're welcome to put it in the comments down below, but I genuinely will read it at some stage. It's just not right at the very top of my list at the moment. But what I would love to see in the comments down below is, if you read a Stephen King, what is your favourite? If you haven't read a Stephen King ever, do you think you will? Do you think there's a reason why you won't? And if you do want to pick one up and haven't read one yet, which one do you think appeals to you most? Let me know all of those things down below, because I'd absolutely love to know. Just a quick apology that my phone's been dinging a little bit in this video. I'll try and edit out where I can. I'm clearly very popular today. But I will see you in my next video, and hopefully you're all well and looking after yourselves, and I really hope that you pick up a Stephen King because he's bloody brilliant. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.